Great time to talk through, weigh all of our picks relative to other people on the board, relative to a trade. It was almost the old adage that when you really get the great players, it all slows down, and it's kind of in slow motion as it's coming through. So our preparation made these decisions. Feel as good about these as I've ever been involved in the draft.
Todd.
Stephen Todd Archer with ESPN. You tell us that player acquisitions 24/7, 365 with what you've not been able to add so far on offense. Do you anticipate looking back at free agency to find some impact players, either running back, wide receiver, or other spots?
Yeah, I think we'll continue to always look to improve our football team. I mean, at the end of the day, it is 365, and you always are looking for opportunities as the draft comes at you. But where we've had our best success, we were talking in there, is when a Micah Parsons, a Zach Martin, a C.D. Williams, they weren't even a twinkle in our eye when the draft opened up, and they just happened to be sitting there at the top, and that's what you take. And so, I do feel like we'll continue to look for opportunities after this draft, but we still have 7 picks left. And I know as you go down, they're not as, obvious that you're going to check a box and fill a need because they're more, they have more holes in them as you go deeper in the draft, or they wouldn't still be on the board. But we've made a lot of top-end 4th-round picks, 5th-round picks, 6th round, 7th round over the years that have gone on to be good players for us. So we'll continue to see where that takes us, and feel good about what we're doing so far, and look forward to finishing the draft and doing a hell of a job with our remaining picks, and then we'll see what we do after that.
John Machado with The Athletic for Jerry. The cameras caught you after the 3rd-round pick, you doing a little dance there. Was that because of the 3rd-round pick, or is that for the full first 3 rounds together?
Well, a little bit of all of it, but certainly we were pleased to get Siobhan. Had such a great appreciation for how hard he works, his story, and we really had a need there potentially with our injury situation at our corners. Plus, he brings something to the table if they weren't injured, as far as making our secondary what we want it to be. But I was listening, and they were talking about what he was as a player. I was listening to Saban talk about what he was as a player and how much he appreciated him. And again, all of that came together right there. And got him. I do want to mention while I'm answering that question that I see we don't have a 4th pick because of Mingo. That is the Mingo pick. Well, Mingo's to 439. Mingo was our 2nd pick in the draft. We had him rated 2nd in the draft 2 years ago. So we think we've done a pretty good job of picking Mingo right there as well. What's all that got to do with it? The thing that I saw was a relative picking players that really fit, not need, I'm not going to say it was need, but really fit to the leadership and to the ethos of what we would like to be able to claim. That was Shoddy's first class. And I'm telling you, these guys, those 3 picks that we've made right there, their makeup, to have that in Schottenheimer's first class will set a tone in terms of what's to go. And it happens, it's there, and we're going to talk about it too, because these are guys that are really the type of people that you want on the team and lead. I'm going to say it again. These guys have that Michael Irvin stuff relative to leadership. And these guys are working to make everybody better. And that was a common thread among those 3 picks.
Calvin Watkins, Dallas Morning News. What are your medical people saying about your cornerback in terms of when he'll be ready to go?
By the end of, were you asking me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's a big question for me, because one of our needs is, because we've got a couple of medicals out there. Okay, so how does that fit? This is the best medical we got about being ready. In other words, he's better than the guys that we're counting on being ready that we've got on an injury situation. Feel good about it. Feel very good about it.
I think he'll start on PUP, but, you know, we'll get him in here and see where he is. I mean, Dr. Cooper did the surgery, and, you know, they feel optimistic. This kid's very motivated. This man's very motivated. And, you know, there's obviously an opportunity here. He's young, that he exceeds expectations and, you know, start to practice up during the process of training camp, but we also know it could be later than that.
What do you think about his story? Just, he was at JUCO, he worked at Amazon, just how he came, he passed on some big-time schools.
That's what I'm talking about. You add that to Donovan's particular story. You add that to Tyler's story. And boy, I'm telling you right now, if Schottenheimer attracts these kinds of character, which are really leadership type character, as well as work ethic. If I don't know if he's brought that to the table, we need to bottle it up. But really, that's the point. I can't think of a better way to define these top three players that we have of, boy, these are the kind of people you want to be around if you're trying to play football.
Nick Harris, forward Star Telegram. What was it about Donovan Ezaraku that you guys fell in love with to pick him up?
Rush the passer and get sacks. He's very explosive, bending around the corner. He's got length, you know, to be able to engage with tackles, but his array of moves and his determination, leadership, and again, who he is, we're going to maximize that. He's going to maximize it because of all of our digging. Jerry was just talking about the people. He wants to be the best of the best, and he's going to do that, and he's going to bring others with him. So he's got skill plus that drive.
Did Steve Shimko help out at all in that process with him?
Yeah, he knew him. You know, that was an additional layer of knowing the person.
Yeah, he had to block him every day in practice.
Yeah.
And he talked about how difficult that was.
Now, that's very helpful, actually.
And then just looking at the board, the running back position, second year in a row, you guys are going into day 3. Without that, why are you comfortable doing that right now?
I'll say because of those 3 we got. They beat out the backs that were there. And I mean that, they did. And we had either or decisions to make there. And so that's why that I'm comfortable, is I'd rather have those 3 than the backs that we went through.
Thing I would add, too, is, you know, we're very pleased with what we did in free agency with the 2 backs that we signed. And so it allows you to be a little more aggressive in terms of not just feeling like you need to push forward to take one. And so like the 2 we have, but this draft class is deep, so we're not done yet.
It is a deep draft of running backs, and we feel like that.
There's more.
Feel comfortable where the depth is and what we added with that. There are some running backs in the NFL come from every round. I mean, if you look every round, they're free agents, whatever, and we have to do our job and find the right ones, but there's a lot of depth in this draft.
Joe.
Joe Hoyt, DLS Sports. Brian, Jerry was talking about the common threads between these 3 guys. You're obviously known as someone who communicates what you want. How did you go about communicating that this thread that ties all these guys together is what you wanted in your first draft class?
Well, I don't think it was just me. I think, you know, we've talked about these guys for the last 3 weeks. I think when we started the conversation out, it was important for us to all make sure we were on the same page, which we were. That the football character, the football instincts, the competitive spirit were things that we were all looking for. But again, I think we've got outstanding football players that just happen to have incredible intangibles and leadership, and it goes a long way. Some of the best players I've ever been around, LaDainian Tomlinson, Drew Brees, they weren't just great football players. They were great people. They were great leadership. I love hearing Jerry and Steven talk about some of the former players, the Michael Irvin stories, and how they impact other people. And so it was one part of the process. But like, we started this with the football character piece and listened to the scouts that have been in the school and talking to the coaches and the people that have been around them. And all three of these guys check a box in multiple categories, not just the leadership and the character, but you know, Donovan's an incredible pass rusher. His get off and twitch, his ability to bend a corner is amazing. We love adding him to the mix. And then, you know, Savon, I mean, how do you not like a corner with size, speed, and length that in his free time worked at Amazon? They're all guys from an offensive mind. You look at it and you say, okay, that creates a problem because you got to block him. And then you don't want to throw over there into the boundary because he's so long and, you know, it's hard to get the ball completed over there.
No, Shotty's a young coach. First-time coach, not a young coach. And, of course, he's been in there for 30 years. These three guys are going to help him coach. They will be helping him. They can help see around, help impact the team and do the coaching for him. And he'll have them right now, right as they walk in. And he can show them how much they mean to him for helping him coach. I've seen that work before. I've seen Michael get thanked by coaches for how much he helped motivate and focus other players. And I've seen coaches thank him for that. So and these guys are influencers with their work ethic and with their understanding of, what's the word for it today? Woke. Seriously, what is that? What is that? That's having some good instinct. That's looking ahead. That's understanding. That's caring when maybe others don't. Some woke. Okay? And these guys, all of them, really, they've demonstrated that they've got the ability to not only feel it, but use it to help their team.
Tommy Arch, DallasCowboys.com. Will, similar to yesterday, how do you feel like looking at how other teams finished out the rounds the board sets up for you on a day where you and your staff have found a lot of success in the past?
I think that it's the exciting part about the draft. I mean, when you start talking about tomorrow, the day three, not only with, you know, the rounds coming up, but free agency, it's where you see the work of the scouts, the extra stuff, the time that they put in, the passion about guys, knowing the guys, and relaying that feeling so we feel good about it. So this is where we do our best work on this day. Tomorrow, excuse me.
Garrett
Podell, CBS Sports. Last year, you didn't have a fourth-round pick and didn't end up trading up. Are you going to take that same approach? Are you going in looking to make a deal to get back up in the fourth round? How important is that to you, one way or the other, to have or not have a fourth-round pick to start day three?
You know that there's many ways to get a pick, and you can go trade next year's, and that happens a lot of times. Not that fourth round's a little hard to do that. Fifth, sixth, seventh, it's not too hard to get trading your pick next year for a pick in that area. So a lot of ways to do it. We have talked about that all day and talked about this run where we're not going to be picking, but you usually will have some ways that if you see a player there that you really want to get, you could go do it. And I'm not going to get specific because there are just too many ways to do it. You can obviously trade a next year's pick. You can trade a down-the-line player that we have that somebody has been talking to us about for a long time to get a pick, or those kinds of things. A lot of ways to move if all of a sudden you feel like you really want to be there.
Saad,
he's with The Athletic. Brian, since your opening press conference, you kind of talked about the trenches, the importance of that, and your first two picks are in the trenches on both sides. Just how important is that philosophy to translate into your vision for what you want to have in your program?
Yeah, I think I said yesterday when we were talking about Tyler, I mean, you know, after taking care of the football and taking it away, winning the line of scrimmage, you know, is critical. Tyler's ability to move people up front, to create a secure pocket, Donovan's ability to wreck pockets and sack the quarterback and bend edges and require double teams and things like that. It's where the game of football is played because, as you guys know, the way these games play, you know, most of them are one-score games, and you're either trying to go in a 2-minute drive to win the game or you're trying to end the game with the ball in 4 minutes, and you got to run the football and things like that. So taking care of the line of scrimmage is something that we believe in, and I think we've added 2 really nice pieces, and again, we're excited about adding them to the mix.
Steven, you kind of mentioned this on the radio this morning, but when you look at your wide receivers right now that you have in the building, how do you view them? A lot of people on the outside might say you have a Boyd at number 2. How do you view where your depth chart is right now at wide receiver?
Well, I would start with, and Shotty probably wants to chip in here better than me, but I would start with Mingo and guys like Jalen Tolbert and, the whole crew, Flournoy, and, those guys have potential to be a 2, but they're not there yet. They hadn't done it. They hadn't hit that level yet, and that's why, we have had an interest in upgrading that room. But I think once you get to 3, 4, 5, the positions you try to fill, I think that receiving core checks all those boxes. It's just, will one of those guys, like Jerry said, Mingo, we had in the top of the 2nd round, does he ultimately achieve that? No different than we're looking at Elam at corner. Does he ultimately achieve where we had Elam when he came out? We had him very high on our draft board. Can he take that next step that he hadn't quite done yet? That's, I think, the way we look at it. And, as I said, the fact if we don't come away in this draft with an obvious number 2, then we'll continue to see if there's a better situation out there. But at the same time, we do think we have tremendous upside in the current core to take the next step.
Yeah, and I would add, I think we're deep. I really do think that we're deep in terms of guys that are young. They have talent. They have traits. They need to be developed. That's part of our job as coaches. But at the same time, rookie receivers, young receivers, at times there's learning curves, right? I mean, it takes them time. A lot of these guys come from different systems and no huddles and things like that. So I really believe that we can make a jump with some of the guys that we're talking about that Steven mentioned, the Mingos. You look at what Tolbert's done. I mean, he led the team in touchdowns last year. Mingo, Flournoy, Jalen Brooks. You get a guy like Paris Campbell, adds speed. Like, there's guys that, again, we're excited about the ability for them to work with our quarterbacks and develop the timing. And it's not as easy always to just plug and place a guy as a rookie receiver. He comes in, he's going to have a monster year. It's not always that easy. And so, but we're never done looking for new players and acquisitions. And why? Create competition.
Pat Doney, NBC DFW. Jerry, you opened the press conference saying that this AI is something. Is that new, and what kind of role has that played in your draft process here this year?
Well, the concept that we have used today's technology to really expand our combinations of what happens, and we're at an all-time high. And it was amazing with the technology that Will and our group have developed. But we basically are getting no surprises on some of the most wildest speculation of what if you did this, what if you did that, where you would be. Well, when we get there, there are those guys that are there. In other words, if you pass on this guy who's going to be there, if you took the extra pick, who's going to be down there 1 round later, who's going to be there 2 rounds later. So without getting in the detail of it, it's been very helpful. It's very helpful. I'm not so sure that it falls under the definition of AI. I'm really not. But I will tell you this. It is a far cry from where it was 30 years ago in terms of really seeing a lot of data and a lot of really important information. I will say this, along the lines, I found myself in this draft really looking at, when we look at whether it's a running back, receiver, whether it's a corner, I do look at the risks that you have there, and then I look at where we are with the risks of a Mingo, of what his risks are there. And Mingo's 4'3". He's a big receiver. We had him in the second round and what have you. Well, the chances of him, because we're new to Mingo and he's new to us with Mingo. I'm just using him as an example. Well, frankly, the odds of that receiver and Mingo being what we want them to be, or Mingo's are better, then maybe we ought to go over here and get this corner, because we don't like that odds up against what we've got in-house there. So that combination of thing goes on all the time. And I would have thought there might be a receiver there rather than the corner. If you had talked to me this morning, a receiver rather than the corner. I would have thought rather than the defensive end, there might have been a receiver when we walked in this morning. But boy, when you stepped there and the opportunity came and you saw it and you waited, it's just the way it's the way the decision was made. And really, that's the way that it ought to be. And the reason I'm going into that, I don't know why I'm so defensive. Old Tim, he's beaten my ass up so many years over it that I don't know what to do. But I'm not in there throwing darts is what we're really talking about, these decisions.
And I'm not sure if the Clay GPT had Shedeur Sanders still on the board, but Sean Payton just said he is shocked that Shedeur is still available now. With your history with Dion and all, are you surprised to see Shedeur still available in the draft?
Well, first of all, I don't want to make an evaluation, but we thought and evaluated him extremely high in this draft. Now, obviously, we have Dak at the highest paid player in the league. That right there. But we thought that I have an edge. I know what winners or what winner that he's got in his bloodline. I do know that. And consequently, with my first-hand knowledge of my relationships over the years with Dion, and I know I've watched 2 or 3 ball games with his son. And so with my knowledge of him and what have you, I know where the character is there. And boy, it is great character. It is an unbelievable, competitive, winning character for sports. Okay? And so I can tell you that. I don't know how many scouts have visited with me about the character of the Sanders group, but they should, because it is absolutely up with the very best that's ever been in sport. And everything Dion has ever done, and he, by the way, I'm a big believer in osmosis, a huge believer in osmosis. Okay? And especially when Dion came to sign with us, when he was a free agent, just left San Francisco. We were at the stadium getting ready to announce his signing. He was a free agent, Deion Sanders of the Cowboys. And we went down to the Cowboys locker room, and, man, there were 20 or 30 suit types, people in there and what have you. And there was Dion, and he had this boy. And I'm not sure which son it was. It could easily have been him. And the whole time, 30 minutes before we did the press conference to announce Dion was going to be playing for the Dallas Cowboys, all he did was play with that boy back there in those lockers and spend his time with that boy. He wasn't up there talking to a bunch of the guys around, whatever. It's all he did. It was just mesmerizing, and it was so genuine. And I remember thinking, now, hey, there's some real telltale there about where it goes. So I'm at the very top. If we've been into scouting, we've been into review people, what have you, with that family, I stand at the top of the list. I don't even need it in writing with Dion at all. And I know that's not far from the tree there with him. And so I know what his stature is. You say, well, where are you, Jerry? Well, you're right. Scratch your head. Well, it's obvious. Dak, we're there. So that's there. But those calls light up. If they happen to be coming my way, they're going to talk first-hand knowledge of my experiences with him and my life with him over the last 20, 30 years. And it hadn't been one time, two times, three times. It's been several times. And so I'm a big person about the character of the Sanders family.
Tim Kalishaw, Dallas Morning News. Jerry, I've obviously got one foot into retirement. If you want to start working on your next speech, I don't think it'll take as long as David's did. But that aside, there's only been 3 or 4 times where you've had the Super Bowl champion in your division, and I know it's a new year and everything, but how much does the task of Philadelphia being up there, and even Washington having gone to the championship game, how much, when you look at building this team, how much are you looking at the daunting nature of that task?
Well, you knew this would come from me, Tim, but we won the division the year before, so we beat them. That's what I think about. And I expected to beat them when we started off this year and didn't expect them to be the champions. And I happen to know where we fell short. Now, to their credit, they fell short in the middle of the year. And boy, to their credit, they got back straight and they got going, and they are world champions. But I know this, 12 months ago, 13 months ago, we're sitting here winning the division and head-to-head playing them. And I know there's a lot of different issues. We'll take issue with what I'm saying. But I don't look at a far-apart action with Philadelphia, and I have probably as much respect for them as a team as anybody in the NFL. I have to think that injuries hurt us a little bit last year. I happen to think that we didn't quite get what we wanted in a couple of rookie offensive linemen, that we might have been a little out thinking too positive there, and our offensive line didn't get there for us like it should. In other words, I've got all the reasons why that we weren't having the season that we were having. Consequently, I see getting better from where we were as we went into that season. I like this guy sitting right here on the end, right here. I like the fact of his familiarity with our players and the fact that he was on that train that we didn't get done against him. So I like all that. I like the adjustments we're making. Now we need to get well. That's not an excuse. Everybody in this thing knows you shouldn't say that, because everybody gets hurt with it. But I'm hoping Dak will have better health this year with that, and I'm hoping that some of our pass rush won't be out as much as it was out here between Mike and Lawrence and Sam Williams. Really, you got to think like that, because you need to address and make some changes. But everybody has to live with a big part of what they've got, and we liked what we had last year coming in.
Todd.
Stephen, you use the term blinking light a lot of times when it comes to, was the cornerback a blinking light for you guys, even with the injury?
I mean, as we went down, and we always talk about it, I mean, he was the top guy on our board. And he obviously had the injury issue. We knew that's probably why he was still available, because he might not be ready to go day one mini camp, day one training camp. But he was sitting right there, and the same thing with Ezeraku. Same thing with Ezeraku. He was, one of those guys that, we weren't necessarily thinking we were going to go after a pass rusher in this draft, but you get a guy like that sitting there with his production, and you're very, it was obvious that that was the right thing to do. And after you just went through, I think Jerry mentioned, we ended up with 4 or 5 of our top guys, pass rushers, on injured reserve last year that didn't play for us at points in time. Then you can never have enough of those guys. And the most important thing, I think Flus said it well, you can't have enough guys that get the quarterback. And he's done it well. He's done it at a high level. We had a lot of good insight with Shimko with him. And so both those guys really stood out. And obviously we've got some challenges at corner with the injuries. And I think they both made a lot of sense for us.
And Will, when you're looking at the quarterbacks, did you guys put Joe Milton into that mix with the guys this year to compare where he would have been if at all?
Kind of in a way we did. I mean, because when you talk about the value that you put in what you're going to have to give, you look at that in consideration of what's there. So, yeah, I mean, I think it was a part of the conversation.
John.
Yeah, just one follow-up on that. Yeah, because I think on the outside, some people look at it as you guys wanted to do the Milton deal because maybe you look at this quarterback class and we're like, Joe Milton's probably better than what we would get maybe on day 3. Do you ever like compare things like that?
Yeah, I mean, it's all a part of the conversation. We bring the player to, we evaluate the player. We talked about it, brought it to Shotty, looked at the college stuff, and then we watched his stuff from New England and saw him grow and thought that there was an opportunity. Guys like that throw the ball that far, they're that big and athletic, don't come along all the time, and thought it was a wise investment for us as we were trying to build the room better.
And then just what did you think of the game that he got to play the majority of the snaps against Buffalo?
It was pretty dang good. It was
You brought it to Shotty.
yeah, it was part of
Quickly he did.
yeah, it was part of the process going through it, is to say, you know, to
Watch this
to
now.
expose it to everybody and say, let's look at this, and then consider it and start the conversation.
Tim Kalishaw again. Stephen, can you just remind us on the Dion contract? You had Jerry up against the wall. It wasn't in the forearm.
Right there. Where y'all'd like to have him sometimes, right?
Figuratively. Literally, you do figuratively. That was it.
That was it.
Yeah. I just wanted to.
We still signed him. By the way, he was right again.
Yeah, no, I just had,
Okay.
I know in certain years in the past, it's happened where you actually wound up with a player with an injury, like say Revel, in a later round, but he was under discussion in the round before. Was that the case in the second round with Revel and when you were there on the board looking at 44?
He was there, but I would say, and you guys both speak to it, I would say Azaraku was quite a bit higher on our board, even though I don't want to take away from Savone, but I will say Azaraku was quite a bit further up the board, and of course, no injuries and clean, and not that Revel's not, but we think he'll be just fine too. But there was quite a bit of difference in those two when we picked there in the second round.
All righty. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
See you tomorrow.
All right, wrapping things up here on day 2 of the 2025 NFL Draft. Stephen Jones, Jerry Jones, Brian Schottenheimer, and Will McClay wrapping up their post-day 2 press conference. Again, appreciate you guys joining us all the way through the first and second days of the NFL Draft.